Welcome everyone. I'm so happy to have Kayla on Ask the Experts. Thank you so much for coming on, Kayla.
Oh my God, my pleasure. I love being able to do this and talk with as many people as we possibly can.
Do you want to tell everyone just a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Kayla Andrade. I've been a landlord for since I was 18. Oh my goodness. Getting a young family, getting into the real estate industry. I started advocating for landlords in the housing community in 2010 and still doing that. And we're doing it very well as a group. Got into property management a year ago after 10 years of landlords wanting me to manage their properties. After that, I also became the national ambassador to Landlord Credit Bureau, so that we are encouraging as many landlords to check out Landlord Credit Bureau so that you can report your tenant's monthly payment history for rent as well as utilities. No consent, no judgment needed. This is bringing fairness and balance to the housing industry as I continue to lobby for changes for a fair and balanced housing system for good landlords, good tenants, and taxpayers. Wow, been doing that for a little bit, eh?
Once you talk about it, makes you realize, right? Like, wow, I've been doing this for a long time.
When you're like gonna take a breath and all the stuff that you do, it's like wow, like that's nuts. I don't know how I do it. I just love doing it. I think that's what keeps me going. I love doing it because we're seeing changes. We're seeing a voice for the small mom and pop landlords now, and we're seeing that there is different products and different services that help landlords in order to continue to be good landlords in Ontario. So it's working out really well.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's awesome to, yeah, when you see, the changes that you're trying to help bring on and when you see them coming. And talking about that, actually, that's a good segue into what changes have you been seeing this year happening or coming up?
So right now, the landlord and tenant board, of course, as you know, it went from Microsoft into Zoom, which is starting to keep things very straight and narrow when it comes down to being able to host these different type of hearings and not have so many interruptions. From the time frame of you filing your application and actually getting a hearing, that is supposed to change by the end of the year. We're supposed to see this between 4 to 6 weeks, fingers crossed. But again, it's still hopeful. We still tell our landlords who are experiencing delays with the Landlord and Tenant Board to make a complaint with the Ontario Ombudsman. We're going to be calling on the Ontario Ombudsman very shortly now to come out with the report because they've been actively investigating the Social Justice Tribunal, the Landlord and Tenant Board, for quite some time now. They've been communicating with the chair of the Landlord and Tenant Board, and now it's time that they come out with their report, because even though we see some changes coming, especially on the Attorney General, they're going to make an online communication portal in a way for us to have an open dialogue with dealing with the Landlord and Tenant Board. It's supposed to model what BC has going on, so I haven't really found too much of what's happening in BC, but I know that they're not as mad and irritated as we are here in Ontario. So we have that happening. Of course, everyone knows that the eviction ban has now been lifted as of the 3rd. Many people are asking about, oh, well, I didn't go to the board because I heard about the eviction ban. It's like, no, always make sure that you're still filing your applications at the Landlord and Tenant Board. They're still doing hearings and they're still technically issuing orders, and you can still file those orders with the sheriff's department, but they wouldn't be able to enforce them unless it was an illegal act or safety. So making sure that you guys are still following the protocols on getting that done. We're hearing that it could be about a 5-week delay, 5 to 6 week delay with the sheriff. But then again, let's see how we can get them to hire some more people in the meantime, because they don't want to hire too much if that's not the norm type of traffic. But you and I both know we still needed a little bit more sheriff. So I'm hopefully able to get the sheriff on one of my Facebook Lives soon enough. And that way he can give you a sneak peek of what their process looks like. So lots of changes happening. We just got to continue to keep helping each other out with that day-to-day operation, the management of tenants, and making sure that we are indeed communicating with our elected officials on all levels, even though they may be from, a different party and you think that they don't care. Just register and get that letter to them and CC me, olwlandlords@gmail.com. CC me in that email. So that way we can have an idea of how many emails are going to the elected officials, what elected officials are actually responding back, and how. But we are going to be able to, keep tabs on these people. But again, we got to make this an election issue just like they are.
Yeah, wow, that's it. There are a lot of things going on, and I didn't realize, yeah, about the evictions that so so they were still then allowing some evictions to happen. It's just as you said, like if they're illegal, then those evictions can still happen.
If there was an illegal act or a legal safety issue and you were granted an expedited hearing at the Landlord and Tenant Board and they expedited that hearing eviction because of legal act or safety, yes, they were still able to enforce those type of evictions through the eviction ban. We better not see another one. This is enough. With all the news that's coming out now regarding masks and vaccines and just the states getting back to life again, I think we have to learn how to start dealing with this.
And there's a question. Do you want to come on and ask your question, RW? I don't know what RW is, or should I ask it?
If you can read it, because I can't see.
Yeah, no worries. I will definitely read it, don't worry. I guess they probably don't want to come on. So has evictions resumed now and the stay-at-home order ended?
Oh yes, as of the 3rd of June, the stay-at-home order was lifted. So same with the eviction. So the notices from the sheriff's offices have been sent out. So now you just have to wait through that time frame and where they send the notice to the tenant informing them that they are coming. So at least we have that going on, guys. Fingers crossed. And it's not that we're horrible people. This is not about the concept that you would want to wish somebody out of their home. This is about the concept that these are people who are abusing the system. They were abusing the lockdown and they never paid a single dollar for rent, because there is a lot of different programs out there that help people in financial hardship situations, especially here in Ontario, and where they can get rent relief and they can also get relief for utilities. So this is about our due diligence as investors to keep an eye on these type of programs, guide our tenants to these different type of programs, so that when you go to the Landlord and Tenant Board to ask for that 11-day standard eviction order, you can say that you've worked with your tenant through that payment arrangement, you've guided them through different programs to help them through their difficult time, and that they haven't paid a single dollar towards their rent. I don't know why rent is literally the only thing in the world, that in Ontario at least, that you can get away with not paying, but luckily now that you can report those payment histories of your tenant to Landlord Credit Bureau, this is now a great way to keep your good tenants in good behavior of paying all the time, and this is a way to put consequence for tenants who think that they're just going to get away with it.
Completely agree. And since you've segued into that, would you like to talk a little bit more about how it is, what the application, like how it is to set it up, or the application process to get into the credit, was it the Landlord Credit
Bureau? Okay, so that's awesome. Okay, so right off the bat, if you could check out landlordcreditbureau.ca. So they're in the States and they're in Canada. So good, landlordcreditbureau.ca. There is a yearly membership, or you can go monthly. If you are wanting to do it monthly, just try it out. There's no contract. You can use OLW15 as a discount code for 15% off your premium membership. And then you're being charged 60 cents per lease per month. So if you have 5 people on the lease, you can report 5 people every month to Equifax, and this is a way for you to reward your good tenants for paying on time. You're going to be able to help them grow their credit. And this is something that is going to be very attractive to your tenants to want to come with you. Because if they have their biggest expense ever being able to be put to their credit score and help them, they may want to take your rental unit versus anybody else, because that is something that you offer. So it's going to be very attractive to our good tenants. And then it also helps you do your screening. So through my screen, that's why I get so excited, and I smile when I talk about it, because I have a unit up for rent. It's 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, here's the garage, and the tenants are loving it. They're like, oh, how do I fill it out? These are my jobs, this is why I'm moving, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as you tell them that, oh yeah, I'm just going to do a tenancy search. So I'm going to see if there's been a report or an inquiry brought to the Landlord Credit Bureau. And then I'm also informing them that I report their monthly payment history to Landlord Credit Bureau. And they're like, oh, that's great. What's that? And then you start to see that it's like, it's a change. And then that's for the negative ones. Now the other ones are like, oh, are you serious? This is amazing. Like, oh my God, I want to fill out the application like right now. That is a strong indicator that these people are excited to be able to have their monthly payments for rent and utilities being sent to a bureau that is not only going to help build them credit, but if they ever wanted to move, it's going to secure them for their next rental.
Yeah, and that's a great point that you said. Actually, when you do tell them those kind of things, like let's say you're going to get their credit report or something, um, their reaction is very true. You can tell because if they have a good credit or they're happy, they're fine with it. Then you're probably getting a good tenant. If people are trying to make excuses or something, same thing. You're just kind of like, oh, maybe not. Let's not get that.
And that's the thing too. You don't even need to have that consent. When you're reporting the negative, the bad payment history, you don't need to have that consent. But for your good tenants, you can work that consent into your additional terms, or you can create a tenancy record with Landlord Credit Bureau. The tenants will get an email. Actually, you can probably hear the saw. The tenants will get an email that is allowing them to opt into the service, to give consent to have their payment history reported for good payment history. And then the best thing, because a lot of people don't know this, and I don't know why, because I'm pretty sure it's on LCB website, but you can report your past tenants delinquencies going back 6 years. So catch up, people. Let's go. And that's going to be like the collect feature. So it's going to be a way for you just to pay a one-time fee for reporting them underneath collect, and they stay on the website up until they stay on a trade line up until the payment has been received.
Sorry about that. Just muted him. Sorry, can you say the last part? Sorry, there's some noise in the background.
Being able to report someone to the Equifax underneath collect, so they stay on a trade line underneath on their credit score for collect until payment has been received. So you don't have to report monthly on a past tenant when you use the collect feature, but for current tenants, you would be using it coming in monthly to report a delinquency. But if you just leave it and you don't go into the system to report, they're going to be considered to be paid and on time. So it's always very important that every 60 days you log into this system to let the system know, hey, I haven't forgot about you. This is real. This is perfect data that I'm sending you, telling you that this tenant is paid and on time.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome that they have something like that for the landlords. Because I feel like, especially in Toronto, the tenants have a lot more control than we do.
If a tenant came to me and said they had their own tenant account with Landlord Credit Bureau, your application went from here to here. And I'm like, okay, you got my ear. This is what I want to hear. So we have this, and it's just about now exposing it and telling our landlords that as we continue to advocate, and I've been doing it for 10 years, and we're seeing some changes, little bits of changes here and there, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort because it's very taunting, and it's political suicide almost for these elected officials. So we can't just hold our breath and expect that we're going to get everything that we need. So we do need to look at different products and different services in order to work, so we can all become united underneath LCB in a way for communication. And it's a great way where when you do an inquiry and you're reporting someone, you can also give a review on this tenant. And so telling your tenant that I'm going to be able to do a review for you, so when you are looking for a new tenancy elsewhere, you can guide your new landlord or your potential landlord to Landlord Credit Bureau to see the review that I've created for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really good. Actually, I didn't know you could do the review.
That was
in there too.
Good or bad.
It's you do both ways, right? You're rewarding your good tenants. And because same thing, I had a tenant that had to leave, and she was an amazing tenant. And I remember the person called, and they're like, why are you letting go of your tenant? And I was like, to be honest, if I had another house, I would definitely be putting her in my other house, but it's just like we're selling it, and that's we're selling the property. And so it was really funny. He's just like, I've heard enough. He's like, I'm taking her. I'm like, yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, I just had that done with another. We had this 3 bedroom, and obviously I seen the people coming. Sometimes you just get that gut. You get that gut, like, yeah, you're gonna be it. Fill out the application. I know it's gonna be good. Like, fill it out. And I got that right away as soon as I seen these people. But the house that I was showing was not for them. But I'm like, okay, wait a second. I'm like, I'm a property manager. I got other properties on the go. I'm like, what are you looking for? And they tell me what they're looking for, and I'm like, oh, I might have that coming up. It's gonna be a week. Making some calls. I'm like, okay, fill out the application, get it back to me. I should be able to get you in for this house now on the weekend. We'll get you in there to see the place. Application came back, amazing. Credit came back, amazing. The reference that came from a known realtor in the city, amazing. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, okay, give me some work references. They got work references. They got pay stubs. I'm like, I love you. I love you. Like, I love it when they come so organized, right? And they fill out the paperwork and it's great. And they're the type of people that we're looking for. Why? Because the market is crazy. The Residential and Tenancy Act is nuts. And the Landlord and Tenant Board is still broken. So we have to do what we need to do as a business owner, because that's what we are, and that's not what we're being considered. We have to do this for our business. And it's not that we're hard people, we don't care, but there's obviously, it's not a one size fits all. And that's why I'm proud to, be a part of the subcommittee for affordable housing and homelessness in Cambridge now. So I can see from a supportive housing and homelessness aspect of things, what way they're thinking is going to be a solution, and be able to chime in of, what programs can we create to actually make a program that works for private investors to want to pitch in. Because right now, and all the programs throughout the years, they have not been desired by private investors. And that's why we're seeing the type of housing crisis that we see here in Canada.
Yeah. It'll be great to hear about that, because you said you have an event coming up, right? And you're going to be talking about all those things.
Yeah,
That'll be really interesting. Maybe we'll have
the
you on
crazy
again
stuff,
to hear about all that.
crazy stuff that I do.
So there's the question again. The discount. What was the discount code again? Is it
OLW 15.
15? Okay, I'm writing it on
And
the.
that's at the landlordcreditbureau.ca.
And then there's also another question. What information on the tenants do you need to report? Do you need their SIN number, for example?
You just need their name and you need their birth date. You would want to have their email included so that they get the welcome email and the clarification when they're past due, the rent reminder emails that get sent out, which they're beautiful, by the way. But if you don't have their email, it's not a requirement. You can just add your email in there just to cover that spot, but it's not a requirement. You just need their name and their birth date. So it's very, very, very important that our landlords are getting a copy of these people's, your tenants' photo ID to make sure that you're getting the precise spelling of their name and making sure that you have the correct birth date.
But I guess when the tenant themselves applies and creates the account, they probably have to provide their personal information so they can grab the right like credit report, or to report to the right credit report.
Yeah, the tenant can actually sign up for their own tenant account as well. And then with the tenant account, the landlord can report on that in particular tenant. But in order for you to have advantages of, the welcome email and having the concept of the rent reminder email and the past due reminder, the past due email, and of course the consequences when they're in collections, that is where you want to take advantage of your premium account. And also credit checks are coming through Landlord Credit Bureau. So you're going to be able to get a discounted rate for your credit checks by being a premium account member, and also a discounted member through your tenancy searches. So you're going to be able to do tenancy searches a lot lower than what for non-members would be using, as well as the pricing for collect. So lots of different things are coming. Like, there's more. I can't even tell you guys what is going on, but I'm so excited. I can't wait for it to come out.
Oh, interesting. So then, so it doesn't actually go into their credit report yet. right now it's just in like the credit bureau, like they have their own separate database. Is that how?
No. So Landlord Credit Bureau, as right now, landlords are able to report their tenants' monthly payment history for rent or utilities. It goes to LCB, which gets put into Equifax. The new that's coming out, that is actually the credit checks in itself. So you got that's like a separate, we report to the agency, and then it's like pulling from the agency. So the pulling of the credit report is just around the corner, but this has already been established where you can indeed report the monthly payment history. And that is what's changing the rental industry. And we have to do as much as we possibly can. If you know about it, start telling everyone about it. It's the best thing that we can do to be able to advocate and to protect ourselves while we are still trying to promote our good tenants. And that's what I've been looking at. Like when I started advocating for landlords, I was raw landlords all the time. And I was like, they're not really listening to me. They're listening to me a little bit, but it's 4 years of not really getting anywhere. And I changed the tone. I'm like, help landlords, help tenants. Help us, help you, help them, right? And that's when the doors started opening up a little bit more. Then we started talking about, okay, we have our big landlords, we have our small landlords. What is that definition? Obviously, we got the big ones that can handle a blow, and then we have the small ones that can't. Now let's look at it now from a tenant side of it. Every time we have an article that comes out, it's like, oh, tenants this, tenants that. No, we need to divide the tenants. We have good tenants, we have bad tenants. And we have tenants that are just barely making by, they are the ones that we really need to be helping, is that we have our good ones and guiding our ones that are barely making by, but the bad ones, they are ruining it for the rest of them. They're like a bad apple in the bunch, or I wouldn't say a bad apple. I would say like a bad potato. You know how that one bad potato in the bag, like makes them all go, they're going to be called our bad potatoes from now on.
Yeah. So let's see, does anyone have any questions before I continue? I'll give them a second or two to see if anyone wants to come on and ask any questions, if they have any tenant problems that they would like to ask Kayla. If the landlord has an account with the LCB, can their administrative assistant enter the monthly credit info payments?
Yes, you can. Just inform you be able to have two different accounts there, one for the login, just so that they know exactly who's logged in. Just make sure that you tell Landlord Credit Bureau that you would like that extra account there on the side for your assistant to be logged in order to do that for you.
That's great.
You're welcome. I seen that. I had two sets of glasses, and my baby just took the one, stretched it so bad. Then I was wearing my sunglasses because they're a prescription, and I would people are looking at me all weird in the grocery store wearing these big sunglasses. I'm like, but I can see all the aisles. And then I fell asleep and left them on my bed.
Oh no!
Take a sleep with them, so now they need to get fixed.
Oh no!
So I gotta get them.
I got you covered.
That's why we gotta rewatch this after. I'm like, how squinty was I?
So then let's get to now a question of just helping our landlords bring in the right tenants. So what are the steps that you would take to make sure that you're, getting the right tenant in? Like, what do you look for in a tenant, just however your process is?
Starts off with your house. What are you renting out? We have many different options where the place is under renos. You really don't want to show it under renos, or you got few minor problems in the house. Let's get that fixed up. And if you can't fix it up based on the timing because you want to get this place rented, when you're showing the unit, making sure that you're highlighting what needs to be done in that property to all of the tenants, to ensure that you are a good landlord and that you are going to be fixing this before move-in, right? Because the good tenants look at that going, okay, well, this is not fixed now and you're showing it to me. Tenants have come and they fix they play with the stove, or they play with the fridge, and they look at the faucets, making sure all that's running. Because if they see that that's the way you're showing it, they think that's the way they're going to get it when the time comes. Then as they come, it's about being as friendly as you possibly can. Try not to grill them about, oh, you want my unit, where's your job, are you working, how much do you pay? This is more about, let's do a character check. What your paperwork is going to do is going to give you all that information. Where's your job, how long you've been there. But it's like, oh, what do you do? Do you work here in town? And that's where they're going to be like, yeah, I work here. And because that's a nice entryway into finding out what they do for work, but in a casual way where it's like, oh, do you work in town? And this is a way, because we're like, well, if you work in Kitchener but you're here applying for a place in Cambridge, like, why wouldn't you want to go into Kitchener, right? So it's a great way to try to figure out what they do and how long they've been working there. Sometimes it's hard to pick someone who just got a job and they're only there, 2 months, and what if they get canned in another month? They can get canned within that 3-month time frame. So always looking at what they do for a job, really indicating, are they going to ever have trouble in the future? Because this is a concept where you want to be able to know that they have wages that could be garnished. The other side of it is that when you're having your tenants going through the unit, you're always like, oh, is it just for the two of you? You get to find out, what their circumstances are. Why are they moving in with so many people? Is it a husband and wife? And are they going to be there for a long time? Is it short term? It's like, you got to base on what do you want for your type of tenant. And honestly, you have to work them in a relationship. It's like matchmaking. I want to make sure it's more of a, hey, I have a landlord and this is who they are, but here's the tenant. I think they can get along really well. I think if there was any, disputes, I think they would work it out really well based on their character of who they are. You want to pick that type of person as a tenant as well. When they are coming with, just getting off of work and you see them and you're like, oh, they're hard workers. But it's like, you see them coming and they're not, like, I expect them, like, you're coming for an interview. Like, I want you to be a little bit, like, I'll smell you when you walk by me. Like, how's it going? Hey, you smoked some weed before you came in. That's fine. It's legal. I just don't want you growing it here. Like, you get that concept going on. Making sure that they're being honest with you, them asking you questions about, hey, is it okay if I have a dog, or is it okay if I have a cat? That's a good sign that these people are very open. Them pointing out a few things around the house. A few things, mind you, I said a few things, because when they start going, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? Are you going to be picky and call me for everything? Like, I'm not here to babysit you, but it's okay for them to show that they care about the property and that they're asking. The best signature is like, oh, can I paint? Can I buy the wood? Can I put a digital lock on and give you guys a key? These are things that are very good to know that this person actually wants to not only live here, but they want to invest their own money into that home. And again, it's up to you. You can reimburse them, as a thank you, because obviously it's going to stay within the property, or because they plan to live there for a long time. And then, and that's the case, this is your home. Always making sure that you're being upfront with them and telling them, listen, I'm a very easy landlord to get along with. I will make sure I will do whatever I can to be here to fix anything if anything breaks. But I am very prominent on rent to be on the first. And keeping the place clean and enjoyable for others in the property, because if not, I will lay down the law and you're not going to like me, because I'm a likable person. I'm getting really friendly and I'm being blunt with them, but doing it in a very nice, casual way, and not trying to be very harsh and like, I will be here doing inspections. You hear, it's easier to catch, more flies with honey than vinegar? Yeah, so that's the type of tactics that I use when I'm, approaching these type of tenants, and you'll get to see that reaction back from them. And even though that you're ready to sign with them and getting that paperwork signed and saying that, hey, you still regurgitate the rules, regurgitate that we are doing inspections, we are going to be reporting your monthly payment history. I do not tolerate payments to be late. If I do, I will give you notice for it. And I always like to tell my tenants that I put you on a month-to-month basis, not a yearly lease, because if you're not happy and it's not working out here, I don't want you stuck. Just give me 60 days notice, tell me what's going on, and I'll make sure that I work with you, because I'm a very reasonable person to work with. And then if they do have trouble, don't always think that, oh, we got the wrong one, or, sometimes people do fall into a financial hardship. Handle them with care, handle them with kindness. That's your business, that's your clients. So you really need to handle it very delicately, because if not, if you handle one situation wrong, that can throw off the entire balance of that relationship. And then you could be dealing with someone nasty. So making sure that you keep everything on a very business format, but very casual at times. Don't invite them over for dinner. Don't add them on Facebook. Just be friendly.
Yeah, all great points.
Oh my God. I get their blood test. No. But you get their work references. You're getting, because you can call, you're not going to be able to call their work and they say, sorry, I can give you this information. So you're getting that letterhead, you're getting them showing that they're paying. Then you can also use, different programs such as Rentify to verify the income that they're saying is happening in their bank account. So we have a lot of different tricks that we're going to be able to kind of cover, but it's going to be based on the unit, based on the people coming, and it's just like if you have a question about that you think with your gut, then you got to know what that question would be and what the response will be. So it's almost like whack-a-mole.
So for the rent and the income, comparing the two, do you have a specific ratio that you like to make sure, for example, this amount of rent, this person should be making this much money? Like, do you have some ratio that you recommend?
Honestly, we look at how much they're making, and you're looking at what else is their expenses. I look at, okay, you have a car, it's a nice car. Is it a paid card? Do you have payments on that car? Do you have credit cards? What your credit cards are looking like? Are you paying child support? Are you receiving child support? Do you have child benefits? There's lots of different ways to up their income, and there's lots of ways to decrease their income. But when you get to see that, when you're doing the credit check and you're getting to see that they have an A+ rating or even a D+ rating, it knows that they're not living above their means and they're able to make their payments on time. But again, it's just making sure that income that they make. And I like to look at, double income. Double income's great and it looks really well, but what do you do when you have double income? Both of them make a lot of money, but you have this person over here is one income, right? At least the double income, if one loses one, but the one is still higher, that is obviously going to be a better candidate, because even if one stops working, at least you still have that extra income to kind of work on. Then you have another person who makes crazy income, but what if they lose their job? But then again, they can go and get a roommate, So there's lots of it's going to be based on the character of that person that you're looking at.
For sure. I think character is definitely, I think, the number one. Because like you said, even just something simple like making sure open communication is there between both, right? Because if there isn't already, that could just start causing problems down the road. And so yeah, 100% character, I feel like, is a really big part of
And
finding.
understanding, guys, I seen it in my group the other day, and I want to make sure that I can give you some tips on it. So when you have a rental unit and you have it for $1,500, let's say, and the utilities are included, but now your tenant moved in a person, or now they're doing excessive laundry. This is something where it can cause the relationship to go downhill very quickly, right? So what I would technically, recommend or suggest is that you look at a cap. If there's two units, and saying that if the utilities go over a certain amount of money, then it goes 50-50. Kind of working it that way, versus trying to determine and attacking the tenant because you don't want that extra person inside of the unit. So using that into your lease as a cap, more so on a concept of, I'm going to put a lock on your washer and dryer area, or, that just causes a conflict. So there's different ways to protect yourself, later on down the road, and just say, I made a mistake. I've learned my lesson from this mistake, but don't make the situation worse. Just know that you just have to fix it for the next time coming, right? So take that in consideration when you are, evaluating what your rent is going to be for that unit, with utilities included or not, because those utilities are always increasing, and there's always that high chance of people moving in with the other individual. So just take that in consideration, and plus they can live there for a long time. So just put that little cap in and see how that works.
Yeah, 100%. And so now leading to actually when you, like, let's say, for example, evictions, but before the evictions, or sorry, let's see, actually, there's a question before I start. Do you have a month-to-month lease sample, or is it this standard lease indicated month to month?
So you have the standard lease that will indicate month to month or standard eviction, but every landlord should have their additional terms where you add everything but the kitchen sink inside of it. Oh, wait, no, you add the kitchen sink and the light bulbs and the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide detectors. Just put everything in there.
So sorry that, yeah. So hopefully, April, that answered your question. If not, you can send another comment, but I'll get on to the next one. Yeah, that answered. Okay, perfect. So sorry, getting back to, so before the eviction part, or just understanding the process, for example, because you were talking about before that, you want to work with them first before going through, or I don't know if it's before going through, but if they're having problems, let's say paying, like how does the application process work compared to working with them, and going through, let's say, that whole process?
From working with them and then the application, like the notice.
Yeah.
You always give the notice while you're working with them. So giving the notice to your tenant on the second or the third of the month, as soon as you start to see that obviously nothing's coming in and you want to show that this is a business, this is paperwork, it's nothing personal, it's just business. And giving that paperwork, especially in the beginning of their tenancy, they know that this is just protocol and at least you're ahead of the game. Now, when you haven't had that notice to them, you can say, hey, I just have to give you this notice. I'm willing to work with you though. Here's this payment agreement plan. What can we do? What can you afford? And also, I've been doing some research for you. Here are some links to different service managers in the province that can help you out with rent relief and also relief for different utilities and different. So that way, if you're able to save on utilities, now what's going to happen is those funds that you save can now help you with your rent. So it definitely is very good to be able to communicate with them. They're going to say, I know that you are in a hardship, by these programs being used, you should be able to make your payments to us by this time frame. And by that time frame, if you haven't received that initial payment, at least it's a payment, then you need to proceed with the L1 application at the board. And that way everything is document. So that when you go to the board is that they're not going to pull, section 83 saying that they want the adjudicator to refuse or delay the eviction. You want them to issue a standard order because you tried to work with them. They refused to work with you. You guided them to funds that they haven't taken advantage of. And this is why you're asking for the standard order. But always giving that paperwork, and it's just in the manner of you serving it to them. I'm just saying, hey, I know you're having some difficulties, but I just have to give this. It's just protocol, blah, blah, blah. But I'm willing to wait until this time frame. So just let me know, keep me in the loop, and that way we can work together on this situation.
Okay. And so let's say when you give the notice, like what's the latest allowed to give the notice? Like, do they have a time frame for the landlords to provide that notice to the tenant?
I believe it could be like a year. But
Oh, really?
we shouldn't be waiting that year. And like you need to get that into the notice because it's about the payment plan, right? So a lot of landlords too are making that mistake of giving an N4 notice to their tenant, and then just because the next month comes due and they haven't paid anything, the landlord's giving them another N4 notice. So know that you only need the one that you're giving, and unless they get caught up to date before that time frame, that's when you would have to send them another one, because if they haven't been caught up, then it's still valid form. And making sure that your dates are proper, because if you're missing one day off, if it's you get the wrong spelling, or you miss the postal, or you miss the unit number, this is all very crucial information that is needed on these forms to avoid the delays that you could experience by waiting and waiting. A part of our advocacy is that we're trying to communicate with the Landlord and Tenant Board in order to review these type of applications prior to a hearing being booked, so that a landlord has the opportunity to reserve the documents but still have a good hearing date set for them, so that we're not giving faulty applications to the board to only find out about these voided applications when we get to the board. So we could be saving a lot of time and a lot of headaches for our investors and even for our tenants who are filing at the board.
Okay, so yeah, that's a great point. So then you send the notice, and while they're still, let's say, delinquent or not paying, you still maintain that N4. But if everything goes back to normal and everything is okay, then, and then if down the road it happens again, then that's the time when you would provide another N4 notice.
Yeah, yeah. It's based on if they got caught up to date. So if they had to owe you, $1,500 and you gave it to them on the 14th, and then they paid and everything's on time, everything's good, and you don't have to do that. Technically, they have up until, the time of, the sheriff coming to pay on time and pay up front to avoid the actual eviction. Unless you put like normally when that happens, you put it, I believe it's section 73 in there. I'm not a paralegal, by the way, guys, but you're putting the section 73 in there so that if the tenant is, after you make this payment arrangements and you get this order from the board, is that you're able to say if they're late a day or a penny less for in the next 12 months, you can apply at the board without their knowledge to evict them, right? So it's something that we like putting in there. Again, there's always those loopholes how the tenants can apply for a stay, but at least it's still one up for us.
And then so from the N4 to the actual eviction, I think it's the L1, right? To actually go into eviction. When do you apply for the L1?
If you're working with your tenant?
Yeah.
Based on that payment arrangement. So if, let's say that I gave you a notice on the 2nd, I'm going to date it for, let's say I would probably give an extra day, go on the 15th or the 16th. If you haven't made that payment to me from that time frame that we've said, then I'm going to file the next day. Right, saying, hey, just confirming we had this payment arrangement. You broke this payment arrangement before I filed. Was there something that I should be knowing about, or was there a misunderstanding? And they don't respond, then you just file. Because either way, when you get to the board, that $186 to $201 application fee, that's actually going to be to the tenants anyways, right? So that's the concept again when we advocate, is that why are we as landlords paying $186 to $201 to bring an application to the board when a tenant only has to pay $53? And it goes, that landlords are going to pay it. Chances are we don't get to see that money back. But if we do, it's going to come from good tenants who are just fell down, and they're now trying to make amends for their situation. And they're the ones now having to pay an extra $186 towards their application, which is not really fair. And it should be changed. It should be balanced, and it should be equal to what tenants pay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I didn't know that actually. I didn't know actually the tenants also have to pay when it's going to the eviction. I thought it was only the landlords, to be honest.
No, a tenant has to pay $53 for an application to bring it to the board, but they do have an application form that a tenant can fill out to have that fee waived. And it probably does. And then the landlord, obviously, when they have their judgment, you put down exactly what the filing fee is, and that's included within the order. And then, of course, our sheriff cost of, usually here in my area, it's about $350 to get the sheriff here. So really encouraging and potentially hiring private bailiffs, something that, they already started talking about, and it just kind of fell through the cracks. So we're really hoping that we get to hire private bailiffs. That way we don't have to wait 5 weeks, if we have our order to do so. Even looking at privatizing the landlord and tenant board wouldn't be such a bad idea too. Make some competition. Pull up your socks.
Yeah, I know, no kidding. So for the evictions, let's say, does it matter if, for example, because I know this happens with a lot of people, they kind of like allow things to slide for months. Landlords will let things slide, maybe not paying or something, and then does it give a problem if then you give the notice or the eviction a few months after everything has been happening?
If you're letting them slide before you file the N4 application, you can still put that into the documents for your N4. You just cluster them together. So if you have it like from January to May, and then May into July, and then you just make sure that your dates are. It just gets more complicated, I find, if you're waiting and waiting and waiting. And I don't know why our landlords are waiting. It's I know it sucks, paying that $186 to file and doing the paperwork, but you know what? This is a part of the business. Just like when I'm going to buy a car, or I'm going to buy, a shirt, they're giving you a little receipt. They're giving you that paperwork that you need for it. So this is the same thing when it comes down to rentals. So I hate seeing, I'm like, did you file your L1 yet? No, I just filed the N4 last week. I'm like, why did you wait 3 months? Why?
I think also, to be honest, some landlords, like you said, like keeping it business, I think some landlords almost become friends with their tenants and they also maybe feel bad or don't want to deal with the conflict and they kind of let it go and then afterwards realize, okay, this is obviously not working out.
And again, back into friends and family when you're renting to them, and it always is going to be the pulling of the heartstrings, and that's how they get in, and then it's going to be even harder trying to get them out. But the way you give them that paperwork, hey, I know we're friends. And I had it. My husband had his friend, and he put him in one of our units. He fell behind on rent, and he just made me do it. It's like, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. Here's your notice. And what did he do? He got an advance on his pay. He was able to pay us, and everything's done. And he gave us his notice to move out, not missing a dollar, right? So it's hard. It's hard. You really got to. It's almost like becoming a doctor or becoming a PSW. People are like, oh my God, it takes a really strong person to be that. How do you do that? Same thing with a landlord. It's not cut out for everyone. You really need to make sure that you're very firm but very friendly with your approach and handling your tenants as that customer base. And you're going to try to just like a welcome, gift when they move in, and having a little, here's a little Tim Hortons coffee. So when you're done moving in the morning, you go to Tim Hortons, have your coffee, and sit in your new home on your deck. It's going to be great for you, and having that welcome, it really builds that relationship where if they are having problems, they feel like they don't want to let you down either because you built that relationship. But do not invite them over for dinner. You can give them a Christmas present for sure, but don't invite them over for Christmas dinner.
Yeah, you got to keep it business.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. So yeah, so we'll do the last question. So RW has a question. Could you speak a bit more about the option strategies for collecting rent after getting an eviction order?
So obviously you've been through the eviction, you got the order, the tenant is going to be evicted, and there's still money that still needs to be owed. So now we got to look at who this tenant is and are we able to garnish their wages? And if so, you can file to the small claims court. But it's tricky. Need to find out where that tenant was located. You have to serve them that documents. You got to know either where they work or where they bank in order to serve them documents. So this is where I love the fact that LCB is coming into the mix, is because we're not here to track down the person's address in order to serve them documents, in order to serve them and hit their credit where it's going to travel with them. This is a way for us to communicate with that tenant by email and saying, okay, now that you've left, we have a judgment. You now have a reminder that this amount is owing. It's going to be constantly reported as an open trade line on your credit score, and that its only way for getting it removed is for you to communicate and be able to pay this amount in order to show it being paid in full. So if you get your life together and if you have a good credit, it's going to be great. If you have wages that are garnishable, yes, I can still potentially come after you and track you down, and I will always keep an eye on any social media account that could potentially give me your new address in order for you to serve you later on down the road. But if you don't have that tenant that has garnishable wages, that is where it's going to be much of a struggle. That's why landlords are picking the best of the best now, because of the system. They're not taking anybody that's considered high risk, and that's what needs to get changed, because we need to make sure that we need to have we have to have protection for a landlord to get and collect outstanding rent. And that's where it's going to either come from, government services of, OW, ODSP, or it's going to come down for an easy way of tracking tenants so that when we do need to take them to small claims court for garnishment, or you have that option of going through Landlord Credit Bureau, informing them that this is hurting your credit. It's going to hurt your credit for when you need a loan. It's going to hurt your credit for when you need to go and get your own mortgage one day, or it's going to prevent you from getting the next rental, because our landlords, we're getting taught really quickly on how to do our tenant screening. And that is what our main focus is as these pandemic has hit, is we need to tighten our screening process. And that's what we've all been doing. That's what we've been teaching. That's what we've been guiding other landlords to do in order to prevent us from getting a tenant who's taken advantage of this COVID and now are into our rental units because we didn't do our due diligence. Now the eviction ban is lifted. we got all of our spidey senses going crazy right now for landlords. We're like, okay, evictions are happening, guys. Like, sound the alarms, make sure that you're asking for that proof, showing that you were able to make payments through COVID. If not, show us your payment arrangements that you had with your landlord for that time frame. You know, why are you moving? You know, really get into that fine detail. Don't grind them. Remember, you got to be their friend. Ask them casually of why they're actually trying to move, and doesn't make sense. You know, that is the overall goal that we have to work with, because even though we have landlords who own single family homes, the tenants are in those single family homes, and the tenants come to other units and saying, oh, well, we own our home here. We're just selling right now. We're going to rent for a bit. I'm like, why? No. Stupid move. I'm sorry. It's just, I don't see it. I don't see it. You've had this property for so long. You're not trying to move out of the province before you rent for a little bit. You just want to move and wait to see what the market is happening. No, like, you hold on to your house.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though we're just, you know, speculating on some things, sometimes you just got to go with that gut, you know, go with, does that make sense? You know, would you do that as a person? Is it a smart move to make? And do you want that smart person living in your property?
100%. Thank you so much. RW, did that answer your question?
I know, I guess I get sidetracked so much.
No, but you always provide such valuable information, though. Yes. So thank you so much, Kayla. It was awesome having you on. Yeah, everyone enjoyed the information you provided. You always provide so much value.
Thank you, everyone. I love it. I can actually see the comments popping up there, and it just get a little closer.
Yeah,
keep yourself motivated. It's a great business, guys. It's a little challenging right now, but just play your cards close and just know that this is a business that you're here to protect, and it's a really good thing to do for yourself, for providing supply and demand, and become your voice to the elected officials when it happens, and tell as many people about Landlord Credit Bureau as you possibly can, so that we're all united underneath one umbrella. We're able to report, we're able to pull, we're going to be able to collect on there, and we have much more that's on the way. So we'll make sure that I keep you informed, and thank you for being a part of my community of Ontario Landlords Watch and being a part of what Diana has created, because I think what she does and her time and effort that she takes on her Saturday to make sure she's giving you guys valuable information to keep you succeeding in this rental industry, to give you that financial freedom that you're looking for.
Oh, thank you so much, Kayla. That's awesome to hear. And yeah, thank you. Any other contact information that you like to give them, if anyone wants to contact you? Or
of course, they can get me on Facebook, Kayla Andrade on Facebook. You got that picture that I had a selfie that I took while I had a babysitter for the night and I was drinking. I'm not much of a little picture person, but you can see me on there. You got Ontario Landlords Watch group, and you have the Ontario Landlords Watch Facebook page that you can communicate, and of course my email at olwlandlords@gmail.com. And then once you send me a message, we know what I can do. I might have to say, here's my phone number, call me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see everyone in the next episode of Ask the Experts. Thank you so much, Kayla. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.